Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So in this video we are going to be reviewing the recently released Fantasy Island. Now it's a really weird one with this movie as the premise of this film is actually excellent, which is, if you go to this magical island called Fantasy Island, then all of your dreams and wishes can come true. But what you don't know is that these wishes and dreams and fantasies will soon turn into nightmares. Now, from a premise point of view, this movie does actually sound pretty cool. When I heard what the premise of the film was, I was actually quite excited, especially when it had a pretty decent cast attached to it as well. I thought, this is going to be the recipe for a great movie, but the execution is just a bit unforgivable, and it's such a shame actually, because they turned this brilliant potential of a movie into something which is just absolutely rubbish, to be perfectly frank with you. Firstly, some of the performances in this film are really not up to scratch. I feel like there were a couple of characters and actors that were miscast into certain roles, but also the overall tone and kind of execution of this film was a bit of a horror comedy parody, in my opinion. I just feel like it was just a bit of a mess in terms of the final execution, which, like I said, is such a shame because the overall premise of the film could have been so brilliant and should have been really, really good. But overall, it's just so gutting that this film just really didn't achieve the ambition that it could have. And also, I just wanted to also say that this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen Fantasy Island, then definitely go check it out and then come back to check out this movie review. But if you're happy for certain bits to be spoiled, then definitely stay where you are, as we are going to be talking about all things Fantasy Island. Now, like I said before, the premise for the storyline of Fantasy Island is that a group of characters go onto Fantasy Island and then they can have their fantasies and dreams come true. So some of them are a bit cliche, such as the twins wanting to have money and girls, which then kind of has the nightmare of these characters kind of being in a robbery kind of gunpoint situation. Another character wants to be in the army and wants to kind of meet his dad again, which turns into him being in a real life war situation. Another character, this one was a bit random because she wants to kind of go back in time and be engaged and married to her childhood lover and have a child, which all makes sense, but then for no other reason other than to move the plot of the movie forward, she decides that actually, do you know what, I don't want this anymore and I want to save a guy from a burning building, which is totally admirable, but it just didn't really make sense from everything that you've seen for this character up until this point. But yeah, that kind of happened to move the plot of the movie forward. And then we have Lucy Hale's character, who wanted to exact revenge on her high school bully. And then you find out that actually the guy from the burning building was her ex-boyfriend who she went on one date with, and she blamed all of these characters for his death, and now she wanted to use Fantasy Island, and her true fantasy is to exact revenge on all of these characters. It was a really absurd plot for this film with loads of twists and turns, but by the end of it you just didn't really care enough because it was just a bit of a convoluted, crazy waste of a film. And I just feel like it's such a shame, like I said before, because it could have been such a great film, but the storyline was just really random and really poorly executed. From an ensemble characters casting point of view, this film has a typical American cast, such as the jock, such as the clown, such as the mean girl, such as the victim who kind of comes back fighting, which is all good and well. You kind of have these different characters kind of bringing out different aspects for different audiences to relate to, and kind of seeing how all of these different characters can interact and stuff, and all of that sort of stuff is great. I actually love ensemble movies, so from that point of view it's cool. But the characters were just parodies of these typical, cliche groups of people, and they were just in this weird horror comedy parody type film, and it was just a bit of a bizarre situation for all of these different characters. We then have Michael Penner's character, and I really do applaud him for, expanding his acting chops. We obviously know him for more comedic roles, such as in Ant-Man, where he does a brilliant kind of hilarious character, and I'm really glad that he's kind of trying out new things and showing audiences that he can do new things. But he was just totally miscast in this role. He was supposed to play kind of the leader of Fantasy Island, is kind of the one that explains how the whole island works and is the one that kind of executes the darker evil side of things and is kind of like the mastermind behind all of the whole Fantasy Island kind of stuff. But he was just not creepy and not menacing in the slightest, and you couldn't really feel the jeopardy of the situation that these characters are in because his portrayal was just really weak, to be perfectly honest with you, because it was just, you would just think that he's going to crack a joke or something like that, because it was just not a well-cast role at the end of the day. It should have gone to someone like William Dafoe or somebody else like that can really kind of hold the situation a lot better. So overall, from a character's point of view, this movie is also really weak. From a visuals point of view, this Paradise Island looked really, really cool. These unstoppable zombies looked really, really cool. And the fantasies themselves all looked really, really cool. It was a little bit jarring though, when you go from like a torture fantasy to a kidnapping nightmare to a woman that's just really ungrateful for having everything that she ever wanted. So, you know, the visuals were a little bit confusing at certain moments. But, you know, credit where credit's due, the visuals did look pretty decent in this film. It's just such a shame that they didn't really make up for the fact that it was a really weak storyline and some weak performances. In terms of comparisons, it's really interesting the fact that this was released at a very similar time to The Invisible Man, which really showed how to do suspense and horror properly. If you haven't checked out my video review of The Invisible Man, then you can check it out via the description box below. But also going back to Fantasy Island, you know, there's nothing wrong with kind of combining comedy and horror. You know, potentially those two genres could go really, really well together. It was just really badly executed in this film. Another film that you could potentially compare Fantasy Island to is Leonardo DiCaprio's The Island, which was just done a hell of a lot better than Fantasy Island. You know, the concept of going to this tropical paradise of an island and things just going crazily wrong for you was just done so brilliantly in The Island, but it was just done really badly in Fantasy Island. So overall, from a comparisons point of view, Fantasy Island is definitely the bottom of the barrel. Overall, I'm sure you can tell I really wanted Fantasy Island to be a great movie. I thought, you know, this got a great premise, it's got a great group of actors associated with it, and, you know, the visuals look really, really cool as well. So I thought this is going to be a great film, but it's just such a shame that the final execution of this movie was just done so badly. I hope that, you know, one day Hollywood does kind of try it again, either rebooting it or kind of changing the formula up a little bit. But as far as this movie is concerned, I have to give it a 2 out of 10. I'd love to hear what you think, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.